All right, let's start with what's going on in the NFL that we think is probably headed to college at some point. So the NFL passed a new kickoff rule, which allegedly is a 1-year trial, but we'll see what happens. My guess is if it is successful in doing what it's supposed to do in the NFL, we're going to see it in college football, because I feel like for the same reason, the NFL felt like the kickoff return had been eliminated. Basically, guys were just booming the ball through the end zone, touchback, let's go play at the 20-yard line, 25-yard line. In college football, it's very similar. There's not as many kickoff returns. So the old XFL kickoff coming to the NFL, our friend Sam Schwartzstein, who invented it, former Stanford center with Andrew Luck. What do you think? It looks weird.
It looks weird.
It's odd.
Feels a little bit weird. It's going to be very bizarre to watch games open that way, if it does, and if and when it does, it trickle down to college football, because that's kind of been a thing that's, almost ceremonial in a way. Like once toe meets leather and the game starts, and it's just not going to have the same pop.
Toe will still meet leather, but the kicker will be in the same place he always was, but the coverage team's going to be on the other side of the field already.
Yeah. With flash bolts that like in big games you see, like is that gonna still be a thing like it is? So
there's a landing zone. It's kind of like
very weird.
It's kind of like serving in ping pong, right? Like you got to get it in the zone. I guess serving in tennis. Too.
Sure, it's just one of those things that I think is really going to take. I mean, to be Captain Obvious here, it's going to take some getting used to.
Yes.
Now I do appreciate the fact that we're trying to minimize those high impact collisions and try to take care of player safety, things like that. So I respect the heart behind it. Just as a fan watching it, I think it's going to be a little bit weird. We talked about this too. Will Compton, who crushes it with Barstool, he was a teams guy in the NFL, and I think his take on it has been really interesting because at the NFL level, obviously these guys are feeding families by covering kicks. Not the same at the collegiate level.
Well, it's going to be different, and what they're saying is there will be running, like the return teams will be running plays. Like they may be blocking it like an offensive play. Like you may see duo get blocked.
Yeah.
And you're going to have 2 return guys. And like, it's not an accident that Cordero Patterson signed with somebody today. Like he was born for this.
100%.
But the question is, will you actually get more returns? Because I think if you do get more returns, it will come to college football probably within the next year or two. Which is, and it's hard for, especially with all this change going on. Like this is going to be a weird, odd-looking change, but I do think the heart is in the right place on this one, and would be in the right place if they did it in college, because I want to see more kickoff returns. I think the kickoff return is a really exciting play. I like the idea of a kickoff being, potentially returned for a touchdown, and this is one of those, you and I both been on kickoff return teams and in our lives, and understood like those collisions are hellacious because if you're on the kickoff team, you're running about 30 yards and then colliding with somebody at full speed. If you're on the kickoff return team, you're running backward for about 15 yards, then running forward for about 15 yards and hitting somebody at full speed. It's nasty. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
You can still have an exciting situation, and I just want the guy with the ball to be able to return it and maybe score some points.
100%. Like I think it's no accident today that Devin Hester was trending on Twitter because of this whole rule change and way this is going to impact the sport. But yeah, like you mentioned, if you are the front line of the kickoff return team, or if you're a guy that's trying to find a way to stay on the travel squad, being a part of the kickoff coverage team, like especially for most teams at the collegiate level, like that's your ticket on the travel squad. And so that's your one play where you're like, all right, I'm going full
somebody
speed.
Up. Yes,
I'm not going back on the play defense or offense. Like I am giving it my all. I'm trying to put my entire soul through your Rydell shut helmet, whatever you got on. So having less runway to do that, probably a good thing. Curious how it impacts the kickers and the punters and how we evaluate that for the collegiate.
Yeah, and I thought Pat McAfee made a really good point about this because Pat was an NFL punter, obviously spent a lot of time in NFL special teams meetings. And he said the tweak the NFL made from the original rule may blunt the effect of what they want. Because originally it was going to be if there's a touchback, the ball goes out to the 35, which is really punitive. It's essentially like kicking the ball out of bounds now. And they changed that. So now if there's a touchback, it goes to the 30. So what Pat is thinking is teams are still going to just kick it through the end zone. Yeah. They're not even going to bother with the returns. I hope that's not the case. I hope that we do see returns because if that happens, then yeah, you can add it to the college game. It'd be fun. Although I will say, so I talked to Greg Schiano about this years ago. This was before he ever went to the Tampa Bay Bucks, when he was the Rutgers coach the first time around. And remember Eric LeGrand? He had been paralyzed covering a kickoff. He hit and had his head was down, and it was a horrible situation. And Greg Schiano then said, you have to do something about kickoffs. And at the time, everybody was still kind of tradition bound. What was like, nah, they're fine. But now that more touchbacks have happened and like kickers can just boom the ball through the end zone, even at the college level, anytime they want. It's become an unsafe play when someone returns it and a boring play most of the time. Yeah. So how do you make it more exciting but also take the unsafe piece out of it? I thought Greg Schiano had an even better idea, because here's what I hate about the NFL's rule. Onside kick, only in the fourth quarter. You must be trailing. You have to declare. Lame. That's so stupid. It's like you got to hold up a flag like, oh, we're going to do an onside kick. No one's ever going to recover an onside kick.
Very lame.
If you do it like that. That's not fun. I want teams to be able to recover an onside kick. And I will tell you, J.D., my favorite onside kick ever was by a team that was winning. You know which one I'm talking about?
Was it a national championship game?
Alabama in the national championship game. The biggest smile you've ever seen from Nick Saban when Marlon Humphrey caught the sky kick against Clemson.
Just perfectly placed.
Because Deshaun Watson's tearing apart Alabama's defense, and Nick Saban goes, you know what? We got to steal a possession here.
Sure.
You couldn't do that with that rule.
Yeah.
That sucks.
It's a total gamesmanship move to be able to have the surprise onside. And like you just said, in those games where you're trying to steal a possession, you realize, hey, this is going to be a thing where whoever has more possessions wins the ball game. That's going to be massive. It's absolutely massive.
So here's where Greg Schiano's suggestion should come into play. And this is, so if you're the college football oversight committee, the people who do the rules, if you're looking at what's going on in the NFL and you say, okay, they're increasing returns, great. Let's think about what we do with kickoffs. I don't think you can do Greg Schiano's idea in the NFL because the punters are simply too good. But what he says to do, or what he said to do back then, and I thought it was a great idea, is you just have a punt to start each possession. Yeah. Like a real punt with a snap, and the punter kicks it. Now, again, if you've never played football, maybe you don't understand the distinction between punt coverage and kickoff coverage.
Sure.
But punt coverage, the blocker is shadowing the gunner, the tackler, all the way down the field. Mm-hmm. It is not a situation where anybody's got a 20-yard head start and colliding with somebody. It's more we're battling back and forth, and then yes, you may hit the ball carrier hard, but he's the ball carrier.
The ball carrier. You're gonna get, that's the price you pay. You carry the pigskin, baby,
yeah.
You know.
So that's the thing. Here's why I love that, because you could do the play that I think would become the most exciting play in football. Instead of an onside kick, you say, if you can run a play and gain 15 yards, 20 yards, whatever you decide the yardage to gain is, whatever you figure out what success rate you want on that play and work your way backward through the analytics. So let's say it's a 1st and 15 or a 4th and 15, essentially. If you gain that 15 yards, you keep the ball. Okay. If you don't, the other team gets the ball where it sits.
So I have two thoughts off of that. The first is, can you do an Aussie-style punt in this format?
Yes.
Second question, does that then change the way that we're recruiting punters at this level?
100%.
Because you got to be able to wing it a little bit.
Torrey Taylor becomes the ultimate weapon.
For sure.
Becomes the ultimate weapon. But I don't think there's enough good punters in college football to make it where it would be boring. Yeah. Like the NFL, every punter's too good. He would kick it a million miles in the air and a long way.
For sure.
And it would just be a fair catch, or the returner would get the hell out of the way because they're scared.
Yeah.
So that won't work in the NFL. But in college, it would definitely work. And the thing is, you could run fake punts as onside kicks, or you could just send your offense out on the field and run a play.
So when you recover, backtracking.
Yeah.
The ball is not touched by the returner.
Yep.
Same thing we see where it gets down within
Would
the
it
20.
Be a free kick? That's a good question.
I mean, is it if you recover it, do you get
that's
the ball?
That's where I think, because the punters can kick it so high in the air.
Sure.
That's where you've got to figure that part out.
Yeah.
So that's why they have the landing zone thing in the NFL. But I think in college you could probably get away with that and have punt rules, or maybe even move them back.
It'd be fun.
and force him to kick it farther.
It'd be fun.
I would love it, but mostly I would love it because you could steal possessions that way. And instead of, because I always thought the onside kick is a little random. Like, here you've got this former Aussie rules football player or this former soccer player kicking an oblong ball and hoping it bounces in a very random way.
Sure.
Like, what football skill is that?
Teeing the ball up sideways and then having
like,
to just try and get your foot under
why not
it.
have football players playing football determining whether you're going to keep the ball or not?
And the change that you call a fair catch if it was off one hop and all those
Like,
things.
can you imagine? And this is where you could do the Nick Saban surprise thing, because if you actually make it a scrimmage kick with the snap, you could run a fake in the second quarter and steal a possession. And it would be awesome.
It'd be very cool. And you're recruiting punters probably, and like at the camp, you're saying, all right, how far can you throw? Are you,
Yes.
You got a hose on? Can you sling the ball around?
You don't remember
know?
Tom Tupa. You're too young to remember Tom Tupa.
I remember Kai Kroger.
Yeah, Tom Tupa was a quarterback at Ohio State who became an NFL punter.
There it is.
Like, can you imagine?
He was built for this era. Just born too early. That's all.
Oh my God! I'm telling you, this would be so much fun if we're talking about rules changes to better the game and make it safer. That's the way you do it. And I do love our friend Sam Schwartz. We're going to have Sam on the show one of these days because he's a genius. He was Andrew Luck's center at Stanford. He tells incredible stories about how Jim Harbaugh taught snapping and taking snaps from under center.
I'm here for
that
it.
involves knuckles and buttholes.
Sure.
He's an incredible storyteller, but also he's an idea guy. Like, if you watch the Amazon Prime games on Thursday night on the NFL, he's the guy on the alternate channel with all the advanced stats.
Okay,
explaining what everything means. And he's one of those people I feel like I just sit him in a room and say, all right, sit here for 3 hours, and when I come back, you're going to tell me how to make a better peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
There we go.
And he would figure it out. So I want to set him on this and see if he has any ideas that would be different in the college game.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Than the pro game.
I would hope so, with the big brain from Stanford.
Because I know people think I just say, oh, if the NFL does it, then college football should do it. I don't believe that. I don't feel that way. There are things the NFL does that are better than college football. Like, if you catch the ball diving and no one touches you, you can get up and run with it.
Sure.
That's a great rule. Yep. College should adopt that.
Sure.
There's another rule in the NFL that just changed that college better stay away from. Do not touch it. Don't do it. Do not do it. This hip drop tackle thing.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. This
Bad
is going to
deal.
be a disaster.
Very bad deal, because I think for those that are trying to understand, like, okay, why is this a bad thing? You're seeing a lot of snippets in the Twitter sphere on Instagram of going to be a safety or a linebacker going and making a tackle on a ball carrier at an angle and then dropping their weight, essentially dropping their hip, like the label implies, and then that weight then falls on someone's knee or ankle, you get rolled up on. And the thing that I think is hard to discern here, Andy, is if I'm a defensive player, like, I'm taught to come and drive your feet. Obviously, that's a big part of it. But like in some cases, like,
unweight yourself is the terminology they're using.
Just get the guy down. Is
what
I was taught.
Like, you cannot tackle someone if you are behind them or beside them. There is no other way to physically bring them down.
For sure.
Than doing what they're saying is now illegal. Yes. So you have now eliminated tackles from behind from the game, or you have forced officials to make a judgment call every single time you have one of those tackles. And you're going to have those tackles that are on a 3rd and 9 where they tackle the ball carrier after a 7-yard gain from behind. And it's going to be great. And the fans are like, yeah, we stopped them. And then there's a flag.
And they're going to say, why? Hip drop tackle.
Yeah.
And you're going to look at it and you're like, it's ticky-tack. Is that, you really want to make this, you get your tummy around. I don't know. I don't know if that's right.
Here's one thing where I'll say I'm glad college football has not followed the NFL down this path. In the NFL, when you watch a game, there are times when you will see a defensive player sack the quarterback, and it looks like a perfectly normal sack. And then they drop a flag, and they say, roughing the passer, you put your entire body weight on him. And sometimes they did kind of slam him down, but you're trying to tackle the man who doesn't want to be tackled. So I'm glad college didn't follow that, and I hope they don't follow it. And look, I understand why the NFL has it, because if you lose Patrick Mahomes for most of a season,
Totally.
for your economic model's sake, that's not great. Bad for business. But and Harrison Smith, the safety for the Vikings, who used to be at Notre Dame, he talked about this. He's like, listen, I understand it from a business perspective, but as a defender, this sucks.
Yeah, and I don't think that should be overlooked the way that like football people are talking about this. Like guys that actually played in the league, ball carriers. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Stewart's tweeting out, he's like former running back at Oregon, running back for the Carolina Panthers. He's like, this is a bad thing for football.
That's how you know it's different, because like when the targeting rules came out in college football and in the NFL, because the NFL was a little later on the targeting rules than college, you had former players going, oh, that's fine. Sure. We don't need hits like that in the game. Like former players like that, none of that matters. You can still tackle people. You don't have to knock them into next week. You don't have to headhunt. In this one, every single former player you've heard from has said, this is stupid. Yep. This will be a disaster. You cannot enforce this, at least not evenly. Yeah. You are making it way too subjective for the officials. You're putting more pressure on them that they're never going to be able to live up to.
100%.
And so, yeah, if I'm college football, if I'm on the football oversight, if I'm one of those ADs, or I think Kirby Smart's the coach on it now, or he was the coach on it last year. I'm saying let's avoid that. We could look into the kickoff thing.
Yeah.
We'll look into that, because we would like to have kickoff returns too. Kickoff returns are fun. Mm-hmm. Fans love kickoff returns. I love kickoff returns as a coach, because if I have better athletes than you, there's a chance that we may be able to steal some points on special teams.
For sure. And I think the kickoff thing is interesting. I'm curious to see across the board what like the extra football persona response is going to be to that. Because we know there's some, and I probably fall into this category a little bit just with how I am nostalgia about it to begin with. I'm like, okay, this has been a part of the game for how long? And I understand the thought, okay, guys are bigger, faster, stronger. We want to minimize the CTE impact. Yeah. So there's much bigger issues at play, but I also think like there was also a point in football where we didn't wear helmets, or we had leather helmets. Right. And it's like things that evolve typically have a better chance of improving, staying alive, all these things.
And I've seen the you're ruining the game responses to it. But I've also seen people go, well, it would be more interesting than commercial touchback commercial.
Definitely.
And so if you are trying to make the game more interesting, I absolutely am willing to listen to your ideas. Yeah. I think that's important. But like the hip drop thing, it's going to be bad. When everyone involved in the game, from coaches to players to everybody, says this is going to be bad. Yes. This is not going to work the way you think it is. That one you gotta pay attention.
Got to perk the ears up and listen. When there is the entire population saying something, might not be a bad idea to listen to that population.
Well, so I gave you mine. The one thing in college football, if I could change a rule, the rule I would change is if you're a ball carrier, you went down but you didn't get touched, you can get up and keep running until someone touches you. Like that one, that's a no-brainer. Should have been changed 50 years ago. Don't know why it exists in the college game now. Like, is there a rule like that for you that you would like to see done differently in either college or the NFL? Like, would you? I'll give you an example. Would you like to see the spot foul pass interference come to college, or would you like it eliminated in the NFL?
That's a good question. I think I'll go spot foul for both college and NFL, because, I mean, we understand there's a very big difference between 15 yards and a first down when it was a 50-yard bomb. Like, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me at any level of football.
I just feel like because the all-PI offense has become so prevalent, where you've got a quarterback who deliberately underthrows, forcing the receiver to go back through a defender who has established good position. That's why I'm actually anti-spot foul.
Interesting.
I think the NFL should do what college does because they're abusing it now.
Sure.
They're abusing it. You should only get 15 yards because you are deliberately throwing an uncatchable ball to force the receiver back through a defender who's done his job.
Sure. Maybe there is a max yardage that you can, achieve. Like if it's 60 yards downfield, hey, we'll give you 25. Hey,
okay, I can
maybe
live with that.
We can workshop that. The one that actually came to mind, though, as we talked about this, I would love to see uniformity for how many feet you need in bounds for a catch. I think 1 feet makes the most, or 1 foot makes the most sense. Like, It's about your hands. It's
Well,
not about having
and
your
in the
foot
NFL,
there.
they love points and offense.
Sure.
That would create more points and offense.
One foot makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
If it's about your hands.
That's
Catching the
It is
football.
so spectacular to me watching these guys when they go from college to the NFL, the really good receivers, to see them learn to tap those two toes. Like it's like watching ballet.
Amon-Ra
It's
St.
art.
Brown
Yeah.
comes to mind
Yeah.
for me.
It is art. But I agree with you. I think we'd get more acrobatic catches on the sideline and be more
awesome.
fun.
Be way better. Yeah, I'm all about that.
Yeah, no, I think college does that better than the NFL.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this would be. I like that we're actually talking football
It's in
in
March.
March.
In
This
March.
is incredible.
It's phenomenal.
Actual football.
Who would have thought?
I know, but this will be interesting. So watch this kickoff this fall in the NFL, because if it is successful in bringing more returns, I would bet we're going to see it in college football pretty soon, whether we want it or not.
One
But I
can
would
hope.
bet it's probably coming. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.